Hello and welcome to today's episode of Build Value by Choice podcast show. I am your host, Nana Bonsu. I am a certified value builder advisor and also the president of Infinite Horizons Incorporated and the show's host. Today I have as a guest Professor Pete Alexander from the state of Oregon. And he's going to be talking to us about stress relief and stress management. Obviously, in these days of pandemic and so many other things going on around the world, there's a lot of stress going around. And so I couldn't think of a better person than to speak with Pete, who's an expert on this topic. As a matter of fact, he writes a blog on this topic. He has a book out. He's an author, a published author. You can look him up on Amazon. His book's title is called Lighten Your Day, Fast, Easy, and Effective Stress Relief. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Anna, thank you so much for having me on the show, and I appreciate the time for your listeners.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I want to kind of, help us before we get into some of these, some of your techniques and some of the ideas that you've been evangelizing out there to help people relieve their stress. If you can tell us a little bit, just your journey, how did you get started with this whole idea of stress management?
Sure. Actually, I've had a lifelong experience with stress. As growing up in a very dysfunctional family, there's an enormous amount of stress that you can imagine that is involved in that. But it didn't actually start manifesting itself for me until 2008. And what happened was, I had like many of us have, this perfect storm of stressful activities that were going on in my life, both professionally and personally. And all of a sudden, I started losing weight very rapidly. And at first, I was in my mid 40s and I thought, fantastic. I haven't lost weight since my 20s. And so I was enjoying it. I wasn't doing any dieting. I wasn't doing any special exercise, and the weight kept on coming off. And so I thought, this is fantastic, until I got down over 30 pounds. And then I thought, okay, something is not right. And I had blood work done, and I got diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes. And the thing is that I didn't listen to my body about what stress was doing to it. In fact, what I did was what lots of us tend to do, is we just, keep on pushing through and not really taking care of ourselves. So I continued to, burn the candle for another 10 years until I ended up in the emergency room with a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis. And for your listeners who may not know what that is, basically my body was eating itself alive because of my stress. And that was, a real turning for me, where I decided, I better start paying attention to this, because if I don't do something now, I probably won't be around too much longer. And that's what got me started on all the stress relief techniques and ideas that I started applying after I got out of the hospital. And what I found was that not only, as I started applying these techniques, not only did my stress go down, my glucose numbers as a diabetic went down, my weight went down, and my energy level went way, way up. It was as if I had experienced a fountain of youth. And what's really crazy is, other than the gray hair, if you look at pictures of me back in 2008 and you look at how I look now, I actually look younger than I did 14 years ago. That is nuts.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's it's almost like you get younger as you're getting older. Yeah, and I actually lost like between 30 to 40 pounds in the last 12 months alone. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I did this program called WildFit. So what are some of the roadblocks and some of the tools and resources that you use to overcome, these stress management issues?
Well, so what I did was I just started experimenting with a whole bunch of different ones. And, a lot of them worked, some of them didn't. And what realized was that, you know what? One of the biggest issues I had with not doing anything about my stress was I always thought that it was going to take too much time. And, I looked at the books that were available on it, and you're talking about like 300-page books on meditation or yoga or deep breathing. And the reality is, most of us have a couple of minutes before we're,
Yeah.
have to go into some sort of stressful activity. And so I focused on what I could do in just a couple of minutes. And so many different things that I learned are very easy, such as visualization, having gratitude, deep breathing, of course, but you don't have to do it for a long period of time. And so that's what I concentrated the book on was sharing over 100 different techniques, and easily 95% of them can be done in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, 100 techniques. That's definitely more than enough to for people to be equipped to do to overcome the stress. So take us to the moment when you had your first breakthrough with overcoming stress, stress management.
Well, it would have been gratitude. That would have been the thing that I found that worked really well. And what I mean by that is, you know, we don't have to have, we don't have to focus on the big things to be grateful. You have to be grateful for everything that you have. And for me, the realization of losing my health and having a very serious medical condition, it really gave me the gratitude that I need to take care of my health. And I've been given this opportunity that I can reprogram myself and not to take on um, these negative influences that were causing me stress in the past. The reality is, if we can understand that we can control our stress, that was the breakthrough. And so having the gratitude to be able to realize, you know what, even in any negative situation, there's always some positives in that. And you only get stressed out if you let the situation stress you out. So, for example, I've worked with a lot of people who say that, oh, my boss is stressing me out because he or she is expecting too much, or customers are expecting too much of my company. And the reality is, the only way that a customer, a boss, a significant other can stress you out is if you let them stress you out. That's the game changer there. And so it's all about how our mindset and how we react to it.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that I've come to realize is the whole self-empowerment thing. And
Mhm.
for me, it's almost like at least personally, while I understood it kind of intellectually, sometimes it still doesn't actualize itself because there's something fundamental, which is self-esteem, right? So if you don't have that self-esteem, a lot of times you feel disempowered, and therefore external forces that can then, press upon you and cause different things that throw you off balance.
Absolutely. And that self-esteem, I mean, one of the things that's always important to do is, if you have low self-esteem, that is manifested from something in your life that really you need to address. And one of the things that I find is really helpful is to make sure that you are very clear on what your personal values are, because if you understand what your top 5 personal values are as it relates to either your career or your relationships or your family, whatever it happens to be, you are able to use that as sort of your North Star. And then you can see, okay, so if I'm having problems in a particular area of my life, am I going away from my personal values? And if you're going away from your personal values, what happens is you're not being true to yourself. And a lot of times I have seen this, and it's happened to me as well, where if you don't keep your personal values right there as your North Star map, you are going to create unnecessary stress, and that's going to inflict the self-esteem as well.
What is the number one mistake that people make when it comes to dealing with their stress issues and trying to overcome it?
That's a great question. What I found is that people either think, okay, there's no way I can get rid of stress. Oh, all stress is bad, but I can't get rid of it all. Well, the reality is, it's not that all stress is bad, because there's actually good stress and bad stress. Good stress, which is also called eustress, EUSTRESS, that's the kind of stress that we all need. We all need it in order to get things done. And, so we want to make sure we're able to, get that project done, get that deliverable, whatever it happens to be. But if we're doing things that we love, that is actually good stress. What we want to do is we want to minimize as much as possible the bad stress. And the bad stress basically comes in two flavors. One is called rumination, and that is when we're thinking about the past and we are worrying about something either that we did or didn't do. A lot of times this is guilt. And the problem with that is we can't change the past. So manifesting and continuing to let that churn inside of us is a real negative issue for us. And so it's better to take the positive learnings about the past and then let it go. So that's one. And then the other one is anxiety over the future. And the reality is, it's in the future. If we start thinking about, for example, let's say we have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, or maybe we have to give this big presentation that we're terrified about. If we continue to have anxiety over whatever that is in the future, and we worry about negative outcomes about that future, what happens more often than not is we manifest that negative outcome. So instead of thinking about what negative could happen there in the future, think about the positives and visualize. I was mentioning earlier about some of the tools that I've used. Visualize a positive outcome for whatever that future event is going to be. And, if you continue to think about it that way, you'll see that your stress level will go down as well. So minimize as much as possible ruminating about the past, anxiety about the future, and the rest of the stress that you deal with. It's all good stress.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of this story that Dr. Dennis Waitley, the motivational speaker, mentioned in his book, The New Psychology of Winning, where he talks about this gentleman that thought himself as freezing to death because he found himself locked in the refrigerator, even though the refrigerator was not operating.
Mm-hmm.
He just anticipated that the refrigerator was at negative 25 degrees, and therefore he was going to freeze to death, and actually ended up freezing to death. And they opened the refrigerator, and the refrigerator was like 60 degrees or 65 or something to that effect. And it was all because mentally he had just visualized himself freezing to death, and that actually manifested themselves in his physical body actually dying. So it's incredible just how much we can actually think ourselves into bad things happening to us.
Absolutely.
Why should people switch over to your lightened stress management model? You have this model that is you've written about in your book that I mentioned at the beginning of the show that helps increase the quality of life for people. And just help us understand why we should switch over. There's over 100, like you mentioned, 100 different tools and strategies. But just there's a lot of different tools out there. A lot, if you popped on Google or YouTube, you see different things. But why specifically should people actually, use your model that's curated and actually researched and practiced.
Mhm. Yeah, the Lighten model is actually it's a seven letter acronym basically that stands for the areas of your life that create stress. And so if you understand these different areas that you can get your stress from, you're able to think, okay, so if happens to do with this area of my life, I can focus on a particular tool that potentially will help me to deal with it at that moment. And so the Lighten stands for L is livelihood or your career. I is your imagination or your conscious mind, which is only 5% of our brains, but it's where our inner critic lies. And so that has a big, big role in our lives. Then the G is for genius, and that's your unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind is what runs our bodies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's where our memories are stored. It's where our perception of the world lies, and it's where real change happens. So it's really important that if it's something that's more underlying that you don't have an explanation for, often it's going to be in your unconscious. Then, of course, it's the H is for health, your physical health, because as I experienced it and how many people realize, when you don't have your health, nothing else matters. So it's really important to keep your physical health as much as possible. T is for time. We all need more time these days. So the intent again is most of these techniques take very little amount of time to try. And what's great about that is if you try something and it doesn't work, big deal. You spend a couple of minutes trying it. If it doesn't work, try something else. If it does work, bingo, use it as much as you need. And then E stands for your environment. And that's because, whether we're at home, at work, maybe in school, wherever it happens to be, we need an environment that helps us to be successful. So if we're working on a project, we likely need some some quiet time, a comfortable place to sit, minimal interruptions. So you want to make sure that your environment is supportive of your stress relief efforts. And then the N stands for your network of relationships, the people in your life, whether it's your family, your friends, your coworkers, etc. You need to manage those relationships because the people in your life matter. And when we are overly stressed, we tend to be less empathetic. We're not going to give those people the time that we need. We're not going to be listening to them. I mean, how often have you had a conversation, Anna, where the person's talking to, you're having a conversation, all of a sudden they pick up their phone and they start answering a text or an email. And you're thinking, okay, so what does that communicate to you? Does that mean that your conversation is important? I don't think so, because whenever somebody puts the priority of the phone over the person in front of them, that is, that sends the wrong signal. So you want to make sure that you're present with those people as well when you want to have, important conversations.
Yeah, in this age of distractions and whatnot, it's very easy to get distracted by these gadgets, not realize what message is sending across to the other person.
Well, yeah. So, if you've at a restaurant, have you ever looked at a table where you see two people or four people or whatever it is, and they're all on their phones, they're not talking at all? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so, prior to COVID, I took going to restaurants for granted. Now I don't. So anytime in a restaurant, I enjoy the environment. And I always thought to myself, whenever I see a table like that they're not communicating at all, they're just on their phones, I think, why are you even at the restaurant? Why don't you just get takeout or have, have the food delivered to your house, because you're not taking advantage of the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. It's I don't know. I don't know how we deal with that. Now, so where should people focus their efforts if they want to relieve their stress level, short term and long term?
Well, I would tell them to go to my blog and start looking at different techniques, or pick up the book. it's whatever is easier for them. And the thing is that if they are stressed, commit to at least a minute or two a day to deal with it. We all can find that amount of time. And it doesn't take a lot of effort. But if we can get into the habit of doing this regularly on a daily basis, the compound benefits over time will be enormous. We just got to get started. That's really it. So you have to prioritize, because the longer you procrastinate and you say, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. Well, that's what I did. And then now I have this chronic disease that I have to manage because I didn't listen to my body. And so don't push yourself to the point where, you go past the point where you can't recover from it.
Yeah, a friend of mine reminded me recently that there's no point in earning the world if you lose your soul, or in this case your health in the process. You don't get to be around too much to enjoy it. So like in terms of the Lighten model, do they have to go in order, or can you kind of a la carte pick and choose where to start, and then just kind of go from there? I mean,
It's a la carte. I like to say that it's like pick a menu, open up the menu and try something. And here's the other thing too, is let's say it's something with their business or their career. It doesn't mean that one of the other techniques in other areas of your life won't work for your career. It's the key is to find something that works for you. So like something that maybe would be one of my favorites may not be one of your favorites, Nana, and vice versa. It's all because we're all different. And so it's whatever works for that particular individual. And all they got to do is find one or two techniques, and that's run with those. If those work and they give you benefit, use them daily.
would it be possible to demo, one or two of these
Yeah,
techniques? Yeah.
sure. I mentioned visualization as one. So let me walk you through this now. Anyone who's watching or listening, as long as you're not driving a car right now. So if you're driving a car, don't this is not the kind of technique that you want to use while you're driving. So pull over. But what you do is I want you to go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And I want you to go in your mind to a place you like to relax. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's a park, maybe it's a lake, maybe it's your backyard, maybe it's the spa. Wherever it is, go there now in your mind and take in all of your senses. So, what do you feel? Do you feel the sun on your face? Maybe the sand or the grass under your feet? What do you smell? Do you smell the fresh air? Maybe the lotion from the spa? And what do you hear? Do you hear the wind blowing through the trees? Maybe the water splashing on shore? What do you see? Do you see the blue sky? Maybe the green of the trees or the grass? Whatever it is, take it all in, and then take another deep breath in. And open your eyes. How was that?
Yeah, that was very powerful. I mean, it's just nice and quick, but
Mm-hmm.
right away, I mean, it's almost that closing my eyes now. I almost feel like it's giving me a whole new kind of perspective.
Mm-hmm. And
Right.
the thing about something like that, if think about it, we can do that when we're sitting at our desk. We can
Yeah.
do that maybe, the car's parked before we have to walk into maybe a sales call or, some sort of stressful conversation. We can do this in 1 minute, and it helps ground us. and it's really, really powerful. And there's many techniques like this that can be done. And whatever we find that works for us, that's what we use as our go-to tools.
How would you summarize what we've discussed so far in a few thoughts and advice for our listeners?
I think the thing that I would summarize is, stress relief does not take a long amount of time. It's worth 1 or 2 minutes a day for your long-term health. And also, don't take your health for granted. If your body is giving you signals, and there's our bodies will always give us signals, especially short term, that we are stressed. If we're having trouble sleeping, or we're sleeping too much, if we've got shoulder stress or back stress, there's going to be pain there. Those are the kind of things that our body is telling us. Maybe our stomach is not well, or we're getting headaches frequently. These are things that our bodies are telling us that we are stressed and we need to do something about it. If you continue to ignore that, what's going to happen is, over time, your body is going to start raising more and more signals until the weakest link in your body breaks. In my case, it was my pancreas, even though there's no diabetes in my family.
Great. So how can people get in contact with you, your blog, your book, and those kind of things?
Sure, they can just go to petealexander.com, PETEALEXANDER.com, and all the information is there, and they can reach out and contact me directly. I'm happy to have a conversation with them as well.
And we're going to have all that information in the show notes too. So
Thank you for that.
wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much. And so look forward to speaking with you soon. Everybody, thanks for listening for this week. We're going to have, Pete's information in the show notes, and look forward to getting with you next week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, download, and share this episode with your friends and family. Bye-bye.